Good afternoon. Thank you. The Appropriations Subcommittee on the State and Local Transportation will come to order. And will the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Steele.
Here.
Representative Slaw.
Present.
Representative Borton.
Here.
Representative DeSena. Representative Robinson.
Present.
Representative Morgan.
Present.
Representative Edwards. Madam Chair, you have 5 of 7 members. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk. Representative Morgan moves to adopt the minutes of the September 17th meeting. There being no objections, the motion prevails by unanimous consent. So, I want to thank everybody for being here today. As we all know, the budget of 2025-26 was passed approximately 2.5 weeks ago, and given that it was not passed through the committee before we pass it on the floor, I thought it was best that we go over it today. So if you would like to provide comment after Bill Hamilton does the presentation, you may do so, and you can do so on these pretty white cards. And it will be a portion of public comment. We'll take notes. It's a 3-minute time frame, not to go back and forth, but for us to take notes, because it is my goal to move forward on the next budget, and today this is day 1 for the next budget of next year. So learning what we did in the past, moving forward, is to the advantage of everybody. So if you need cards, Denise will pick them up from you, and it doesn't have to be right this second, but throughout the presentation as he proceeds. So now, Bill Hamilton from House Fiscal Agency, if you could go over the budget as passed October 3rd. And we will not have screens, so hopefully you guys have flyers that he presented that you can look at as he goes along. So, Bill, whenever you're ready.
Madam Chair.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I didn't quite catch it. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. We have 2 agenda items today, and the first one is, as you mentioned, as you noted, the overview of the recently enacted budget for the Michigan Department of Transportation, the transportation budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2026. We're already in that budget year. It began October 1st. And members and audience have copies, or should have copies, of a House Fiscal Agency summary document. Members should be familiar with this. It's a standard House Fiscal Agency format. If the audience members, we had some in the hallway. We've got extra copies here. So this is a summary document. It does not include all the line items in the budget. We have documents that do include all the changes that are on the House Fiscal Agency website, the line item decision document, the boilerplate decision document, but this is just a high-level summary. Again, it doesn't include all the line items or boilerplate sections, and it doesn't include every action. It doesn't discuss the executive recommendation, the House action, the Senate action, simply the enacted action. And again, as with all House Fiscal Agency documents, it begins with a table up at the top. And as the baseline figure that we're going to use as a base for comparison, it's the 2024-2025 budget, the budget year that ended on September 30th, less than a month ago. And as you can see, the gross appropriation amount is $6.8 billion. And the major fund sources supporting that budget, you can see toward the top, about $2.3 billion of federal aid reflected in the budget, approximately $4.2 billion of state restricted funds, and in the 2025 budget, $193 million of state general fund general purpose revenue. The next column over is the enacted 2025-26 budget. And again, well, let's start with the gross appropriation figure at the bottom, approximately $7.9 billion. And you see the major changes in revenue sources, $2.3 billion of estimated federal aid. That's an increase of $55.9 million. And then the major change is in state restricted funds, $5.4 billion, and that's an increase of $1.2 billion, 28.8%, and that primarily reflects estimated revenue from the transportation funding package that was passed that we'll talk about in detail later. And then finally, the enacted 2026 budget does not include any general fund appropriations. So again, the increase 2026 as compared to 25, about 1.1 billion, and that's an increase of 15.9%. And again, many of these figures reflect estimates. Again, estimates of the road funding package that was just passed. I'm going to use the word estimate a lot in the presentation as we go through it. The overview section in the middle, that big block of text, describes the historic fund sources that support the budget, and then the House bills listed toward the end of the page are the bills that were part of the transportation or road funding package that was passed back in October, or the first part of October, including, as we know, an increase in the motor fuel tax, changes in sales and use tax, and of primary interest, Senate Bill 578, which created a new neighborhood road fund. So I'm going to flip to page 2, and I'm going to walk fairly quickly through these changes in programs or line items. And again, as I've mentioned, these are summaries. We roll up or condense sometimes a number of line items. So number 1, debt service. Debt service would total $340.8 million. That's an increase of $100,500. And that simply reflects anticipated debt service schedules. The Michigan Department of Transportation knows what debt service will be going forward. So that's primarily simply a reflection of debt service schedules. Item 2, services provided by other state departments. So there's a budget mechanism in this budget that allows transportation funds to reimburse other state departments for services performed, such as the Michigan Department of Treasury collects motor fuel taxes, and they get reimbursed from transportation funds. Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy does permit work, and they get reimbursed through this method. And the state police, we had testimony from the state police, they get reimbursed for the commercial vehicle enforcement functions they do from the state trunk line fund. That's an increase of $2.3 million, and again, that simply reflects adjustments to anticipated costs of those programs. Item 3, departmental administration and support. The only substantive change we note here, and it's fairly small, but there are 2 parts of this road usage charge pilot project and study. One part is in this ongoing section, 1 full-time equated position and $171,900. And that's, as I say, that reflects ongoing costs of this road usage charge study. We'll see this again when we go to the one-time section. Item 4, design and engineering services. There's an increase of $1 million, and that simply reflects a change in the billing for shared traffic signals, shared in the sense between state trunk line, the state trunk line system and counties and cities. It's fairly technical, but we show it here, $1 million, and there's a decrease of 27 full-time equated positions in these design and engineering service lines. Item 5, state trunk line maintenance. So the current year, when I say current year, actually it's 2025, the appropriation was $486.7 million, and this is for the cost of routine ongoing maintenance of snow plowing, pavement patching, grass cutting, that nature. The appropriation is a $15.4 million increase in state trunk line fund support to reflect the additional costs of service contracts, concrete, aggregate, and other materials. Item 6 is the appropriation for state trunk line road and bridge construction. This is what you might call the capital program, the orange barrel program of capital construction. The current year gross appropriation is $1.6 billion. The budget reflects an increase of $233.3 million, and part of that reflects part of it is anticipated increases in federal funds and additional state trunk line fund revenue available from the road funding package. Again, these are estimated revenue figures. Items 7 and 8 we're going to take together. So they're there is ongoing a distribution from the Michigan Transportation Fund to cities and villages and county road commissions. And I'm going to refer to this flow chart that the chairman shows often. So historically, county road commissions, cities and villages, the appropriation goes to those buckets, and then it's distributed by formula in Public Act 51 of 1951. The current year numbers are estimates, and the change in 2026 is also an estimate that reflects in part the increase from the road funding package we're talking about. So again, and I note it's no longer simply the Michigan Transportation Fund. It includes some distribution from the new Neighborhood Road Fund. So as you can see, the estimated increase to cities and villages would be $255.8 million. At least that's what we've reflected in the budget. And the increase estimated to county road commissions would be an increase of $474.2 million. And I know everyone wants to know how much additional revenue my local road agency will get. And we did estimates, and we thought a lot about it, but there are so many variables. We are not going to do that at the House Fiscal Agency for a couple of reasons. Too many variables, and secondly, the Michigan Department of Transportation does that, and they've always done it, and every month they update their revenue estimates. So they've got a model to do it, and every road commission and city and village with the Department of Public Works knows to look at that website, and they can look at their budget, adjust their budget, develop their budget. So there's that.
Could you maybe give a percentage of what you think it might change so people can know the difference of what it was and what it will be?
Yes, so when we first attempted these distribution models, I used the 2024 distribution because those were known numbers. Those were fixed. We knew that. We still don't know final 2025. So I estimated it'll be an increase of about 33%, about one-third more in 2026 as compared to the 2024 baseline.
For each one?
Roughly, yes. They all should get roughly a bump of about a third from 2024.
Cities and villages,
Yeah.
counties, and MDOT, but MDOT I thought was smaller, roughly.
Yes.
So a 33% increase across the board is roughly what we can expect in these communities moving forward.
From the 2024 baseline. Soon we'll know 2025, and that's really a better basis for comparison instead of going back 2 years. But it's a work in progress, of course. So now we're on page 3, local federal aid, road and bridge. So, of course, the Michigan Department of Transportation has access to federal funds for its state trunk line program. Many road commissions, the cities and villages have federal aid eligible roads. And so in Michigan, we set aside some of this federal aid for local federal aid projects, and it's reflected in the budget. The current year, $411.2 million, and based again on estimates of additional federal aid, we show an increase of $17.8 million in the budget, again, based on estimates. The Movable Bridge Fund, this is a earmark of MTF money, Michigan Transportation Fund money. Again, it's in the flow chart, and it's to offset the operating costs of movable bridges. And it has so based on the Act 51 distribution, we show an increase of $141,900. But as I note in the text, Senate Bill 578 includes provisions that would allow the use of excess funds in this fund for local bridge inspection programs. Item 11, so this is a totally new item that is part of the road funding package. The budget includes $40 million from an earmark of Neighborhood Road Fund in Senate Bill 578. This $40 million is for the local rail grade separation fund. This is a fund targeted at making separations between at-grade roads and railroad crossings. And the target is for high-density safety issue projects. 40 million there. Item 12, the Transportation Economic Development Fund. This is a targeted transportation fund, and the budget simply reflects an increase of $462,200 in available revenue. Item 13, Passenger Transportation Services. This is the administrative arm in MDOT, the administer passenger transportation programs, and that reflects an increase in estimated federal aid of $800,000, and there's also an increase of 6 full-time equated positions. Then items 14 and 14B go together to some extent. 14A is the ongoing local bus operating appropriation. This provides operating assistance to, I think, 78 public transit systems funded from the Comprehensive Transportation Fund. And so the budget reflects an increase of almost 44.9 million, and that is in part, well, that is from anticipated increases in Comprehensive Transportation Fund revenue. So it's appropriated in this line item. We include 14B below because 2025 included 20 million of federal COVID relief funding that was also distributed according to the local bus operating formula. So from the transit agency perspective, you have to look at both appropriations in context. They're getting an additional 44.9 million from the CTF, but we'll no longer see the 20 million of one-time funding. And then item 15, there's federal aid available for non-urban or rural transit services, and based on revenue estimates or estimates of available federal aid, that shows an increase of $496,500. Item 16, transit capital. This is a line item that provides capital assistance to transit agencies for the acquisition of buses, new technology, primarily federal aid, but some of the funding comes from the Comprehensive Transportation Fund. So there are two things happening here. You see the gross appropriation is a decrease of 6.8 million on the far right side. There's an increase of 2.9 million in estimated federal aid and a decrease of almost 9.7 million from the Comprehensive Transportation Fund. Part of that is due to a shift to local bus operating, that decrease. We're on the home stretch, page 4. Item 17, again, this is one of the items that reflects changes in the road funding plan. Specifically, Senate Bill 578 creates a new infrastructure projects authority fund funded from the Neighborhood Roads Fund. 65 million, it's a new program, and since it's new, I don't know a lot about it or how it's going to operate, again, to be determined. Item 18, rail operations and infrastructure. This provides support for both the rail passenger service and some rail freight or rail economic development programs in the budget. And there's a decrease in Comprehensive Transportation Fund revenue of 4.5 million, but the budget includes, or it recognizes, an additional 1.7 million in private funds in anticipation of a specific rail freight project. The next three have to do with the state aeronautics programs. Item 19 is the Airport Improvement Program. This is a program of capital assistance to publicly owned, public use airports. And the budget shows an increase of 6.8 million from the State Aeronautics Fund. And this was developed, this increase reflects last minute estimates, and which may not, well, let me put it this way. It's not clear if the budget reflects State Aeronautics Fund revenue. I think it may be slightly over appropriated. Item 20, IJA Airport Infrastructure Grants. There's no change. We include this just to show all the funding for airport capital projects. Item 21, Detroit Metro Wayne County Airport. There is currently, or an ongoing, I think this is 2015, funding that goes directly to the Detroit-Wayne County Metro Airport from the Qualified Airport Fund. Again, this shows an increase of $6.3 million, but after the budget was put together, it's not clear if the budget reflects current revenue estimates. Item 22, we show the elimination of one-time funding items that were in the 2025 budget. Again, that's the $193 million of general fund that is not carried forward to 2026. And then at the bottom, we've got, I believe, five one-time items in the 2026 budget. There's a $5.3 million deposit from the Comprehensive Transportation Fund to the Maritime and Port Fund. Item 24, there's a $5.3 million earmark for rail heritage preservation programs. Item 25, there's a $5.3 million earmark for non-motorized trails from the Comprehensive Transportation Fund. Item 26, there's a $5.3 million deposit from the Comprehensive Transportation Fund of the State Aeronautics Fund, earmarked for general aviation airports. And then item 27, we briefly mentioned at the beginning, funding for a road usage pilot project and study. Some of that is ongoing, and $7.7 million from the MTF is one time. And then finally, we show economic adjustments. These are the amounts calculated primarily by the State Budget Office. The additional costs in 2026 as compared to the 2025 budget for salaries and wages, retirement contributions, workers' compensation, building occupancy, and other economic adjustments. So that's the run-through. Again, I know that's a lot to go through. That's still a summary, a fairly high-level summary. The next section deals with boilerplate changes. I'm not going to discuss those in any detail. It's too much to go through at this stage. I'll only jump to page 6. I'll just note a couple of new items. Section 314 would create a MI Contracting Opportunity Loan Fund. That would be a revolving loan fund to help provide capital assistance or capital loans to undercapitalized contractors, I believe. 315, again, we mentioned the Movable Bridge Fund, and I note that Senate Bill 578 would provide new uses for the Movable Bridge Fund. 388, Section 388 would prohibit use of federal grant funding on a I-375 project in Detroit. And then items 721, 723, 724, and 753 describe those four earmarks or one-time funding items from the Comprehensive Transportation Fund. Section 802 establishes a new priority guidance for the department's air service program. Finally, on the last page, page 7, at the very top, section 1005 is language that governs this new road usage pilot project and study. And finally, in the very last section, the House Bill 4706 had a supplemental section that provided supplemental appropriations to the 2025 budget. That included almost $5.8 million for critical infrastructure projects. And at that, I rest. And maybe this is a good opportunity for questions. Oh, wait, one other quick thing. Oh, yes. Do I have, wait. Oh, so this, for the audience, I've got an additional help to members. When we stopped at items 14A and 14B, we talked about local bus operating. And there's a bit of a challenge in trying to find a good basis for comparison. So members have this, audience members can email me, I'll provide this. This is a 4-year history of local bus operating. And I did this because of the challenge in accounting for that one-time federal COVID money. So you can see starting in 2023, the baseline CTF appropriation was $201.7 million, and then you see the subsequent appropriations in 2024, 2025, and 2026. So the 2026 baseline appropriation for local bus operating, and this is not, everything else in some ways is an estimate. This is not an estimate. This is the figure that will be distributed based on a formula to, I think, 78 local public transit agencies, and it is $271.6 million. And that's the new figure for that program. Does that help? Well, again, that's for the road funding piece. Agenda 2. I mean, we can go to that.
No, I think I'll open it for questions at this time. And then I did want to just make a comment that you talked about the CTF funds and you said earmarks. I just would like to say that it's just a different forms of public transportation that we are recognizing in this budget. And so 24, 25, 26, 23, to me, those are different forms of CTF opportunities.
Yes, and I only say earmark in a kind of a generic, general way that they're identified for a particular purpose.
Thank you. Okay. I don't think I have any questions. Do you have any questions at this time? Or do you want him to go over that one? Okay, Bill, if you could go over this last handout, and then we'll open it up for questions and see if there's any questions at that point.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So we're on to agenda item 2, which will be actually somewhat more condensed and abbreviated than the budget walkthrough. And this is a high-level description of the road funding package, simply as it affects transportation funding. So there, as I show on the front page of the budget summary, there are a number of bills in that road funding package. We call them a package because they were tie-barred to each other. They were all related in some way, but only a couple of them have a direct relationship on the transportation budget. So the one item that I think you're all familiar with, that the audience is familiar with, is the proposal which has been adopted in House Bill 4183, which would increase the motor fuel tax by 20 cents a gallon. So that in 2025, actually through December 31st of 2025, the current motor fuel tax is 31 cents a gallon. Effective January 1st, 2026, House Bill 4183 would increase that to 20 cents a gallon plus an inflation adjustment. So in our analysis, just for ease of calculation, I think we talk about the 20 cent per gallon increase. So I apologize for not having this in a projectable format. I should have known better. But you have before you can, and members too. So the House Fiscal Agency, there is long text bill analysis. I think we were at 17 pages that describe these bills in some detail. So one of the bills, you can have easy access if you go to the Michigan Legislature website, Senate Bill 578, you can remember 578, and you'll find our analysis and see all the text in detail. But for today's committee, I've limited it to these 2 pages. So the first page shows the impact of the 20 cent increase in the motor fuel tax. And so people frequently talk about the gas tax. Well, the motor fuel tax is also applied to sales of diesel motor fuel. So you see on the left-hand side the motor fuel impacts. So the first column, we talked a little bit before about how to establish a good baseline for comparison. So in this chart, we're using the original estimates of motor fuel tax revenue for 2026. So when the Michigan Department of Treasury does revenue estimates, this first column is what they thought motor fuel taxes would generate in 2026. So you see gasoline, diesel, alternative fuels, $1,629.4 million, 1.6 billion. Actually, I think the first time I said that was wrong. 1,629,400,000. The next column shows the impact of that 20-cent increase. So you see over a 12-month rollout, and we're not trying to make a break here between fiscal years or when it begins. A 12-month impact would be an increase of $874.5 million from the gasoline component. $186.4 million from diesel, $1.5 million from alternative fuels. So the impact from motor fuels, $1,062,400,000. And then there is a second component. There is a surcharge on plug-in hybrid vehicles and all-electric vehicles. That is, the surcharge is tied to the motor fuel tax. And so by increasing the motor fuel tax, it would generate an additional an increase in that surcharge to hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles, and we estimate that to be $11 million. So the total revenue increase just from this one component of the package is let's say it's 11.1 million. I'm sorry, let's start over. It is $1,073,400,000. A bit over $1 billion. But let's call it 1.1 billion. So do we follow this page? Now, so this is what we've struggled with, is this next component, and we tried to simplify this chart, and we tried it in a number of different ways, but we're going with what I call the three-column so if you all remember these, so it's following this model. We've got three columns of revenue changes. And the first column shows the changes from the motor fuel tax. You look at the very top number, that's the number we saw before in the first chart. $1,073,400,000 is the increase, the gross impact of the motor fuel tax increase, the 20-cent increase. Part of that, current law recognizes that some sales of gasoline are for snowmobiles and watercraft. So there's a 2% of the motor fuel tax on gasoline currently, and in this formula, goes to the recreation improvement account administered by the DNR for snowmobile trails, I think recreation improvements. So that's $17.3 million that comes off of that. So the next number, $1,056,100,000, that's the amount available for transportation funds. The next line is the 10% that would go to the Comprehensive Transportation Fund. That will be offset by the fact that it loses some part of what's called the auto-related sales tax, but we'll get to that. Let's skip that for a moment. So after you deduct the $105.6 million, the next figure in bold, $950,500,000. So the next item where I show a decrease of 600,000 or 600 million, this is not actually directly related to the motor fuel tax changes. We're showing this in this chart because from the current distribution of the Michigan Transportation Fund, there is currently 600 million of income tax revenue. There we go in that chart. 600 million that's earmarked to the Michigan Transportation Fund for state and local road agencies. That is being changed in House Bill 5961. That 600 million is now being shifted to corporate income tax, which will be the next column. We'll get to that in just a moment. So to get to the point, to focus a bit, so we start with a bit over $1 billion at the top. We get to a subtotal of $950,500,000. We subtract $600 million of income tax. So the net amount here for distribution to the three road buckets, as we call it, $350,500,000. And then at the bottom, we show that distribution. That distribution follows the current Act 51 formula here. 39.1% to the state trunk line fund, 39.1% to county road commissions, and 21.8% to cities and villages. And the internal distribution, there's been some misunderstanding of this. The internal distribution does not change, either in this or in the neighborhood road fund. The distribution to 83 county road commissions, among the 83 county road commissions, stays the same. The current distribution factors don't change. The same is true with the distribution factors among the 531 cities and villages. So once it hits that bucket, the distribution formula in current law takes over. Nothing changes. So that's column 1. The next 2 columns in my 3-column analogy is the corporate income tax, and then we show effectively kind of the conversion of the $600 million in income tax to corporate income tax, $88 million of corporate income tax, $688 million total, and then the next line is the estimate of the new wholesale tax on marijuana, $417 million, and that gets you to a number of $1,105 million, and then we show these distributions that are established in Senate Bill 578. And again, some of these are new. There is $100 million earmarked, I say earmarked or dedicated to local bridge programs. So it's almost identical to the current local bridge program. 100% for local bridges. The next 40 million, and we reflect this in the budget we talked about, 40 million for this rail grade separation program, 100 million for public transportation programs, 35 million to the Comprehensive Transportation Fund, 65 million for a new Infrastructure Projects Authority Fund. Again, that's totally new, and we saw that in the budget when I talked about it. And then the balance will be distributed to county road commissions, cities and villages, and the State Trunk Line Fund. That distribution formula that I show on the right is a new, follows a different model. 52% to county road commissions, 28% to cities and villages, and 20% to the State Trunk Line Fund. However, the 52% that goes to the county road commissions, and 28% to cities and villages, once it hits that bucket, it will still follow the current distribution model among the road commissions and among the cities and villages. So again, that's a lot to walk through. And again, we made a great effort to simplify it. One of the ways we've simplified it is to try to put it, to not overthink it going forward 6 years, showing the changes for 6 years. It's understood there will be, the first 5 years follow one distribution model. The revenue estimates change each year, especially for the corporate income tax. There's a different model once you hit the sixth year, but we're not showing that today because we believe our motto has become, my colleague, our HFE economist over here, Ben Gilchick, we've agreed on the motto that clarity is better than false precision.
Exactly.
Even though this is not as clear as we'd like it to be.
That sounds just like the formula. Clarity is enacted economic precision, I think is what you said.
And I acknowledge that's a lot to go through.
Yes. It actually leaves me speechless, which is uncanny. So I'm going to start with questions, and Rep. Borton, you can start.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill, just want to say thank you for your presentation. I know I appreciate your ability to take a lot of complicated information and reduce it into layman's terms so we can understand it and better make some decisions. But my question is, and you may have answered this, but I just want some clarification. Would it be fair to say that the new road funding dollars are being distributed in the same way in respect to counties?
Yes. So once it hits those buckets, the county road bucket, the distribution among those 83 county road commissions is determined by Section 12 of Act 51. So even if it's, so both the additional MTF revenue from the 20-cent increase in the fuel tax or this new neighborhood road fund revenue, once it hits that bucket, the distribution formula does not change. It is the current formula.
Okay, and I just want to clarify that rural counties are actually seeing an increase.
Yes, all the counties will receive an increase. So what's the expression? A rising tide lifts all boats. So the additional revenue will be distributed by the same model. And actually, the publication that has this chart in it, we show the current internal distribution formula. So the distribution formula among the counties, yeah, it's here. I send it to you later if you'd like. The biggest driver of that distribution formula is registration taxes attributable to each county. So 47% of the formula reflects each county's proportional share of registration tax revenue collected by the Secretary of State. So for example, if Macomb County representative, and this, I don't know what the percentage is, so let's say Oakland County, just smiles, represents 8% of the of vehicle registration taxes collected. 40% of the formula will be distributed by the proportional formula. I think I'm making that more confusing. 8% of which will go to Oakland County. I made that more confusing.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Madam Chair.
So ultimately, it goes through the same formula, but it goes up 33% basically based on the new funding mechanism.
That's a better way to say it, yes.
Okay. Rep. Slaw.
Bill, thanks for being here. In the first set of pages, so the budget detail stuff that you had gone through, on page 4, it's number 17, it talks about infrastructure projects. Do we know what those infrastructure, so it's number 17 on page 4. Do we know what infrastructure projects those are, what that entails?
We don't. Again, this is a totally new program. It's established in Senate Bill 578. Senate Bill 578 includes some criteria, program guidelines. We describe them in the bill analysis of Senate Bill 578, so it's in a narrative format. You don't have to look at the bill, you can look at it. But at this point, we don't know specifically what it would go for.
So whose hand is it going to be in to make that decision?
I'll have to get back to you on that. It's in Senate Bill 578. I'll have to check on that. Off the top of my head, I don't want to testify because I'm not sure.
Isn't it for sewer lines?
No, I don't believe so, no. I believe it's for public transportation purposes. That's, as far as I know, it's like the broad category of public transportation, not for infrastructure like water and sewer kind of activities.
So it could be, as an example, it could be port authority stuff that had to be redredging, or it could be additional rail spurs, or it could be almost anything, is what you're saying.
I believe so, but again, I don't want to test. So the broad category of public transportation, but I will double check on that.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
Rep. Morgan.
Okay, I think I have quick questions, a couple quick questions. One, can you clarify if the township match requirement is still in there for townships? The county distributes their funds, but will there still be the county match? I couldn't figure out if that was still in there after the final version.
So you ask a question which has been one of the top questions we've gotten from this. So of this additional revenue stream that is now going to the neighborhood road fund, and part of it will be distributed to county road commissions, cities and villages, under current law, with the Michigan Transportation Fund, in Section 12, it limits how much the county road commission can spend of their MTF dollars on local construction projects, on the local road system. So county road commissions have county primary and county local. So I use the example in Ingham County, the major roads in Ingham County, Holt Road, Okemos Road, Jolly Road, are primary roads. So
But is that in the new?
wait, hold hold
Try
that
and go
thought.
for a simple
Hold-
answer.
So yes, so that doesn't change. Counties still identify their road system between the county primary system and the county local system. Act 51 currently limits how much of their MTF dollars can be spent on that county local system for capital improvements. And then Senate Bill 578 says with this new neighborhood road funding, I think it says, I don't have the exact word, matching funds are not required. And so we've thought quite a bit about this. It does appear, so it does give county road commissions and I suppose cities and villages more latitude in spending this neighborhood road funding dollars on those type of projects than they currently do with MTF dollars under Section 12. So that the wording wasn't as clear as it maybe could have been, but that appears to be the case, that the neighborhood road fund dollars that the county road commission will get, it appears that they will have more latitude. They could perhaps spend it on local projects without matching. That's the language that it says, without matching. It doesn't refer back to Section 12, but it just says without matching.
So could or aren't required. So is that something we need to clarify more? I think the idea when we were looking at that was, we're giving a significant increase to our county road agencies, but our townships aren't getting an increase in their budget to be able to match those funds. So I thought the idea was to not require that match. But that's what I'm trying to
That does
clarify.
appear to be the case. And I talked to the Michigan Department of Transportation folks, and that seems to be their interpretation in how they interpret that section. So the counties, with that neighborhood road funding dollars, they could not require a match.
I say it does not require a match, the new road funding. It could, doesn't have to. That's how I interpret it.
I just have
Yeah.
one more question.
Go ahead.
For the CTF dollars, one of the things I wanted to understand is there's 205 million new for CTF between the Infrastructure Project Authority Fund, there's that 100 million for that piece of it, and then there's 105 million for as a result of the gas and fuel tax swap. And then in your sheet here, this very helpful diagram, you outline that there's 105.6 million increase, but then 44.5 million comes off the top as a result of loss of CTF through the auto-related sales tax. So my calculation would be that would be about a 60 million increase for CTF.
Yeah, a net $60 million, a net $60 million increase from those two changes, increase in the motor fuel tax and the loss of the auto-related sales tax. It nets, as you say, to about 60 million.
And so the one piece I was curious on is when I look at what's going to LBO, that's only estimated here at like 45 million. Where's the rest of that? Where's the other 15 million?
There's about 20 million in those four one-time items. The deposit to the State Aeronautics Fund, to the Maritime and Port Fund, the non-motorized, and the Rail Heritage.
Gotcha. Okay.
one-time
Great. That's what I
items.
was trying to track down in this. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any other board members have a question? No? Okay. So it's kind of unusual as appropriations to invite any public comment. And so I have John Dolms, Michigan Public Transit Association, that would like to make a public comment. And I'm just going to kind of follow the guideline of what we did as a township. Their public comments, we'll take your notes. We're not going to go back and forth. If If we can answer immediately, we will, and then we're going to revisit it in the future and answer your question in the future is the goal here. So whenever you're ready, John.
Good afternoon, everyone. Name's Ken Jumkeski from Huron Transit and president of Mass Trans. And I'd like to thank for the additional funding for public transit. We just have some questions and concerns on the 35 million, but I think John can go into more detail or.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair and the Vice Chairs, member of the committees, to dig into this, and we'll be very brief. MPT and Mass Trans, representing local transit providers, are extremely grateful. The 45 million increase that was in the budget really helped save transit at the local level for the next year, certainly, or more. And there is additional funding that's been included that is very substantial as a part of the overall increase. So we're extremely grateful all the work that was done. Rep. Alexander, who's joined us here today. And we look forward to working through some of the details with the administration and MDOT, with legislators. As Ken flagged, the 35 million has not actually been included in the budget, something that is left yet to do. So we'll have some conversations about whether it's a supplemental opportunity in the current fiscal year, or as the chair kind of began by stating that we're going to be in the conversation for next year's budget very soon. So I think our overriding goal is understanding the funding. Rep. Sla, your question about the new projects fund is a very good one. We share some of the same questions. And the goal is to make sure that we're sustainable, because this is a substantial amount of funding, but it needs to be sustainable for the purposes that have been prioritized by everybody involved for the next however many years. We're not talking just for the next year or two to get by. We don't want to come back to you hat in hand a couple years out saying that, hey, this money has been spent and it's no longer keeping up with the increases at the local level that we see, just the cost. Ken could share all the costs he sees every day of providing the service, expansion of services in Wayne County and other places, and potentially new projects that folks would like to see come on board, which is all, for the most part, really good things to talk about, but obviously the dollars have to be there for it. So, I don't, if you said no questions, that's the time we have. We look forward to meeting with you individually or as a committee when we have some further asks, I guess.
Thank you. And then just to clarify, the CTF is public transportation, and as I see that there's approximately 35 million at this time that has been unallocated. And I think that that's what you're referring to. And it hasn't disappeared. We haven't forgot about it. It's just at this time unallocated. And moving forward, we're going to look at that just because there's modes of transportation that we just have to take in consideration. So that's, I think this next budget go around, we can take all that into consideration. So thank you for coming up here. I appreciate it. And we'll have you guys do testimony in the future, because I want everything to be as transparent as possible. So with no further, do I have any other thing? Business? Oh, I would like to excuse absent members. Supported, excused, and with no further business, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.